creating a society which is really taking mass surveillance to the next level, folks. And all of it is being presented to us as attractive technology that is going to benefit us. But really what we are doing is we're handing all of our existence over into the hands of artificial intelligence. That's what's happening. And it's happening whether we want to do it or not. I mean, even whether the politicians want or not. The politicians are actually squeezing themselves out of a job. We're not even going to need state governments to get in the way, because it's all going to be run by one big system. And the whole thing is going to be governed by AI. The whole thing is going to be governed by social credits and behavior scores. And as I said, in that sort of a system, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. If you can't spend it, then you can't spend it. And when everything is digital, when there's no cash, whatever money you've got, whether it's crypto or whatever, it's all digital. You can't actually go into the store and hand them a note. Well, then they have got you, and you have to behave the way they tell you to behave, or they simply won't let you buy anything. And in a world that is run by economics, if you can't buy anything, then you can't live, you can't eat, you can't pay rent, you can't do anything. And that is the beast system, folks. That's what we're moving into. You know, there's all of this stuff going on beneath people's feet, and they're always kept distracted by all the external trappings of life that go with this society. If it's not just the external trappings of life, then it's the international theatrics that we're always dealt with. I mean, we're always led down the garden path with this stuff all the time. There's always some major drama on the horizon, always imminent death, imminent war, imminent this, imminent that. But it never really comes to fruition. It's all designed to keep us on the edge of our seats, keep us living in fear, and make us believe that we actually need government here to protect us, when it's really just them cooking the whole thing up to begin with, you know. One big theatre show, ladies and gentlemen, and it always has been. But through it all, as I said, it's very important that people notice what's actually happening on the ground beneath their feet as we're being distracted with all this stuff. Funny how things turn out when you just observe things without any stake in the outcome either way. When you tell the truth, the real truth, you piss everyone off. These people have been pushing us and pushing us and pushing us for generation upon generation. And it's about time we pushed back and said enough is enough. It really is. The smart grid is the new world order, as I've said to people so many times, and it's imperative that people pay attention to this. And as I said, start pushing back, folks. You know, if you don't start pushing back, then perhaps your children will want to push back. And it's going to be so much more difficult for them to push back when they grow up. I mean, they're not even going to have the ability to do so. So if people who are aware of this situation do not take the matter in hand now and stop this, then the future we're allowing to be constructed for our children is going to be an incredible dystopia, and they're not going to have any way out of that prison, and it's all going to be due to our negligence on the ground today. So that's where the action needs to be mounted, folks. That's where the attention needs to be. And as I've said so many times, one of the most important things you can do is share information with people. Help people become aware of what is actually happening around us. It's so important that people do this. I mean, that is the best action anybody can take, because once enough people become aware of it, we can simply step away from the system. As I've said, you know, non-compliance, folks, we could step away from this whole thing in a day, and we could change the world in a day, non-violently, peacefully, respectfully. All we have to do is change our perspective and say, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. We've realized that we're all just people here, and that you guys in the situations of government, I mean, you're not there to rule us, you're there to manage things on our behalf. You're doing a god-awful job, and so we've decided to call it. And that's what we need to do, folks. As soon as we do that, we will change the world in a day. It's just getting the information to people so they can see the necessity of making this stand while we are still able to. You know, and the hardest part is, and has always been, the sharing of information. Too much division, too much animosity, the so-called truth movement. It's not a truth movement, it's a popularity contest, and that's really not what it's about, folks. What it's about is freedom. And our freedoms are truly vanishing very, very quickly. Stop wanting to be right on all of these issues. Stop trying to hack each other down, and don't get some focus on what this smart grid is. You know, if we keep viewing this as a popularity contest and about who has the latest scoop or whatever, or who can climb to the top of the pile. We fail to get a focus on what is actually happening around us and what this control grid is going to be, and we fail to take the necessary steps to step away from this grid before it comes online. Then all hope of human freedom is going to be lost. What's important about all of this is freedom, and that's what the focus needs to be. So get a grip, people. You know, this whole grid is coming out now. It's all rolling out now. It's coming to our country. It's coming to a town near you right now. And if you fail to get a grip on this, then you are helping build your own prison. And if you're continuing to use your cell phone for all these things, and use your cell phone to log into this and log into that, and do all of this smart stuff and use all of this smart technology, then you are part of the problem. It's as simple as that. You've got to stop supporting the system, because by supporting it, you're supporting your own slavery. And this is not a popularity contest. And it doesn't matter who's right on anything. What matters is freedom, and that needs to be the focus.
If the few are going to control the many, they can only do it in two ways. Controlling the perceptions of the many so that the many behave as the few want, and two, they have to centralize decision making. Otherwise they can't control. The only way the few can control the many, the only way this cult has been able to take over the world, is top-down hierarchical structures of power. And this is how easy it is. Talk about remove the cause of the problem. Let's go to the real big level of removing the cause of the problem. How do the few control the many? By the acquiescence of the many. And it works like this. You've got a pyramid, a hierarchy. These hierarchies operate nationally and they operate globally, and they interconnect into a global web. So at the top of the pyramid, you've got the inner core of this cult that's driving this global agenda. And these few, and the few of the few, the center of the core of the core, you get into one room, like I said earlier, imposes its will, i.e. its agenda, on the next level, which acquiesces to them and imposes it on the next level, which acquiesces to them and imposes it on the next level. And soon after you get down from that pyramid peak, you're meeting levels of this hierarchy, national and international, that have no idea there is a cult, that has no idea, most of them, there is an agenda and it's all coordinated. But the same process continues. Imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence, all the way down, imposition, acquiescence, down the hierarchy, until you reach the mass of the population at the bottom of the pyramid, symbolically. And if we acquiesce to that level of this cult hierarchy that is imposing it upon us, i.e. government agencies, law enforcement, etc., then we complete a circuit, a devastating circuit for humanity, between the few at the top of the pyramid and the global population. And when we complete that circuit of acquiescence, the few, the agenda of the few in that single room is imposed upon the world. And so if we come back to the principle of don't look for solutions, look for the cause and take the cause away, the only way that those few in that room can impose their will on the global population is by the global population acquiescing to the hierarchy, irrespective of whether it makes sense, irrespective of the effect on other people, irrespective of the deletion of freedom that it involves. Throughout, my life, I, observed politicians and stuff like that and people in authority. And there have always been, moronic people and clueless people and all that stuff, of course. But in the key positions of power, and this is no accident, I explain in Renegade Mind how this was done. There are more morons in power, official power, not real power, around the world than ever before. You look at the premiers of the states of Australia. You look at Biden. He doesn't even know what his name is. He's now president of the United States. That's trying to break the spirit of America by putting a obviously moronic man in power over an entire nation. They're trying to get you self-respect. Has been a war on the human psyche and a war on the human spirit. And that's why it's so important not to have our spirit broken. And then you say this. The reason this group exists that doesn't want to do it but does it because it fears not doing it is because it goes down the list of consequences. It says this is the right thing to do, but what are the consequences for me of doing it? And if you go through that, the list will get long enough for most people to say, well, this is the right thing to do, but I ain't taking that consequence for doing it. And so you become part of group 2. I don't like it, but I'll do it anyway. But when you are in your true spirit, when you're in your true heart center spirit, you don't go through this checklist of consequences. You do what you know to be right at every turn. And what the heart says is, if I list consequences for not doing what I know to be right, that means I would be considering not doing what I know to be right. That's never going to happen. So I'm going to do what I know to be right, and the consequences will take care of themselves. But I am not going to be intimidated into not doing what I know to be right because I know the consequences of that. And that is that those who are intimidating me have control over my life.